Kyle Shanahan's vision for the San Francisco 49ers offseason has suddenly become a major talking point, and not just within the building. Despite the organization choosing stability by retaining its entire coaching staff, a franchise icon believes standing pat on the roster could be a costly mistake. Richard Sherman, one of the most influential defensive players in 49ers history, has offered unsolicited but pointed advice, arguing that the team's real transformation must happen on the field, not on the sidelines. From offensive line upgrades to wide receiver decisions and even quarterback trade possibilities, Sherman believes Shanahan is staring at one of the most consequential off-seasons of his tenure. On his podcast, Sherman addressed the growing buzz around the 49ers' reported interest in Baltimore Ravens center Tyler Linderbaum. On the surface, the idea seems logical. Linderbaum is widely regarded as one of the NFL's premier centers, a three-time Pro Bowler just 25 years old and a perfect stylistic fit for Shanahan's zone-based rushing scheme. Still, Sherman urged caution. Linderbaum is a great pickup, but I also have concerns about why Baltimore let him walk, Sherman said. You got to do your due diligence. Why would they let a 25-year-old, three-time Pro Bowler, basically a first-round talent, walk out the building? Those guys are rarely available. They're dependable. They're durable. And with the injury history of the San Francisco 49ers, you got to make sure every door is open and every question is answered. Sherman's skepticism centers on scarcity. Quality centers rarely reach the open market, and when they do, there is usually a reason. Baltimore declining Linderbaum's fifth-year option in 2025 raised eyebrows across the league, even though the decision was largely financial. The Ravens drafted Linderbaum 25th overall in the 2022 NFL Draft and signed him to a four-year rookie contract worth approximately $13.24 million, a bargain for his level of production. Because the fifth-year option was declined, Linderbaum played the 2025 season on the final year of his deal. If no extension is finalized, he is scheduled to become an unrestricted free agent in March 2026. The hesitation from Baltimore may not reflect Linderbaum's talent, but rather the exploding center market. Elite interior linemen are now commanding salaries once reserved for tackles, and Linderbaum's next contract could reset the financial landscape at his position. For the Ravens, the choice is difficult. Commit massive long-term money to a center or risk losing a foundational player. For the 49ers, the decision is just as complex. San Francisco has struggled with injuries along the offensive line, and while Linderbaum could provide immediate stability, Sherman warns that the price tag, combined with medical risk, makes the move far from straightforward. Shanahan must now weigh whether upgrading the interior line is worth potentially sacrificing flexibility elsewhere on the roster. Sherman's analysis didn't stop with the offensive line. He also turned his attention to wide receiver Jauan Jennings, suggesting the 49ers may be better served letting him test free agency rather than rushing into an extension. What does he get on the open market? I think you allow him to explore that, Sherman said. You keep the phone lines open. Jennings has been a reliable contributor in Shanahan's system, particularly in physical matchups and high-leverage situations. In 2024, he signed a two-year, $15.39 million deal that included approximately $10.54 million in guaranteed money and a $6.21 million signing bonus. The contract runs through the 2025 season, and his pay was later restructured with performance-based incentives, pushing his potential earnings to roughly $10.5 million for that year. The Sherman suggestion reflects a broader philosophy. Don't overpay for solid production when elite difference makers may be attainable through smarter asset management. Letting Jennings test the market could either lower his price or confirm that the 49ers should allocate resources elsewhere. Perhaps the most controversial part of Sherman's advice centered on the quarterback position. Mac Jones, who delivered modest results in the 2025 season, was thrust into the trade conversation as a potential tool rather than a long-term solution. Jones appeared in 11 games, throwing 13 touchdowns against 6 interceptions. Respectable numbers, but far from franchise-defining. Sherman believes Shanahan should explore Jones' value now, particularly with multiple quarterback-needy teams around the league. I think you can find receivers, and maybe they use Mac Jones to help them find their number one receiver in some way, Sherman explained. There are a lot of quarterback-needy teams. We mentioned the Minnesota Vikings, but also the New York Jets. You ask, is Garrett Wilson available? Can we get Mac Jones and a pick for Wilson? Those are conversations you have to be willing to have. While a deal of that magnitude would be bold, it reflects Sherman's core message. Shanahan must think aggressively if the 49ers want to close the gap at the NFL's elite offenses. The urgency behind these discussions is underscored by one glaring statistic from the 2025 season. Running back Christian McCaffrey led the team in receiving yards, catching 102 passes for 924 yards and 7 touchdowns. While McCaffrey's versatility is unmatched, relying on a running back as the primary receiving threat exposed a lack of a true, dominant wide receiver. For a team built to compete for Super Bowls, that imbalance is concerning. Sherman believes Shanahan must address it decisively, whether through free agency, trades, or reallocating resources from other positions. With free agency approaching and major financial and personnel decisions looming, Shanahan stands at crossroads. Stability has defined the 49ers' coaching structure, but according to Sherman, stability alone won't be enough to push the franchise back to championship contention. Whether Shanahan heeds the advice or charts his own course remains to be seen. What's certain is that the 49ers' offseason will be closely watched and heavily scrutinized as one of the most pivotal periods in the Shanahan era.